Night. The mountain road outside Bennington was black with rain. A white SUV drifted to the shoulder, headlights dying. Inside, Lenora Ashbridge gripped the wheel. No signal. The screen flashed a warning she had never seen. Critical powertrain fault. A yellow light glowed in the distance. A rusted sign. Brandt and Son Auto. That morning, she had pointed at that shop and laughed for the cameras. The man she mocked at noon was the only one who knew what was wrong with her car. What does a CEO do when the man she insulted holds answers her company cannot explain? 2 days earlier, the morning had come gray and slow. Hollis Brandt unlocked the side door of Brandt and Son Auto a little after 6. The bell above it gave the same tired chime it had been giving for 20 years. He flipped the breaker, watched the fluorescent tubes flicker to life over the bays, and stood for a moment in the smell of cold oil and old rubber. The shop sat at the bend of Route 7, where the road climbed out of Bennington toward the Vermont line. 2 bays, 1 lift, a window, stenciled with letters that had begun peeling the year his father died. He filled the coffee pot from the bathroom sink. The cup he poured it into was the same chipped white mug he had used since college. Outside, the sky over the Green Mountains was the color of pewter. By 6:30, his son was awake. Beck Brandt, 7 years old, padded out from the small back room in socks and a flannel shirt that almost matched his father's. He climbed onto an empty oil drum near the workbench, opened a sketch pad, and went to work. He was drawing a Mustang again, red. The same red Mustang his mother used to drive. He drew it every week. Hollis had stopped asking why. Hollis poured milk into a smaller mug, set it in front of Beck, and bent to tie the boy's shoelaces. Beck did not look up. "Bus comes early today," Hollis said quietly. "I know. Did you brush your teeth?" "I know, Dad." Hollis allowed himself the smallest smile and went back to the workbench. Their mornings had been like this for almost 4 years. By 7, the first customer pulled into the lot. Earl Hadley, who ran a small dairy operation outside Pownell. His old Ford had been in twice that month for the same coolant leak, and Hollis had told him last time he would not charge for the 3rd visit if it came back. It had come back. Hollis raised the hood, traced the line, replaced the clamp himself in 20 minutes. When Earl tried to push a folded bill across the counter, Hollis pushed it back. "Already settled, Earl." "Hollis, you got a kid, and you got cows that don't milk themselves. Get going." Earl shook his head, smiled, and got going. After the truck rumbled off, Hollis went into the small back office. He closed the door behind him. On the desk lay a stack of envelopes he had not opened. He flipped through them once, paused at one stamped in red. Final notice. The bank in Brattleboro. He folded it twice and slid it under the ledger, the way a man hides something he has not yet decided how to face. In the bottom drawer, behind a coffee tin of bolts, was a small locked case. He did not open it that morning. He never opened it when Beck was in the shop. Inside that case was a hard drive, an old laminated badge with a photograph of a younger man in a clean white lab coat, and the words, "Apex Drivetrain, Senior Powertrain Engineer." He pushed the drawer shut, took a long breath, and went back to the bay. Beck was now drawing a sky behind the red Mustang. The sky had 2 stars and 1 small moon. "Looks good, buddy," Hollis said. "It's for Mom." Hollis nodded once, slowly, and bent to check the air pressure on a tire that did not need checking. 5 hours south, on the 42nd floor of a glass tower in Lower Manhattan, Lenora Ashbridge stood at the head of a long table and did not sit down. The boardroom of Ashbridge Motors had been designed by a firm in Copenhagen and built to make people speak carefully. The walls were brushed concrete. The chairs were leather the color of bone. At the far end, a screen the size of a small wall displayed a single rotating image of the Ashbridge Aurora, the company's first luxury electric sedan, and the centerpiece of the initial public offering scheduled in 3 weeks. 12 directors sat around the table. Lenora was 34, the youngest CEO on the New York Stock Exchange's pre-launch watch list, and she had not lost a vote in this room in 2 years. 3 weeks from today, she said, we open at $58 a share. Underwriters are confident. Pre-orders for the Aurora have crossed 11,000. Press is positive, and we have 1 job left. She tapped the screen. A map of the northeastern United States bloomed across it. I'll drive the Aurora prototype from Manhattan to Burlington and back. 5 days, 4 cities, 42 stops. Every dealership, every business reporter, every camera. If the CEO doesn't drive her own car, no one is going to. Beside her stood Trevor Cade, Chief Operating Officer, 45, the man who had been at Ashbridge since the company had 9 employees and a leased warehouse in Newark. He nodded along as she spoke, the same measured nod he had perfected over 20 years of corporate boardrooms. "We're aligned," Trevor said. "PR is locked. Security is locked. The car is ready." Lenora let the meeting end on that. Directors filed out, murmuring approvals. As the room emptied, a young engineer named Daniel Petrov hovered near the doorway, a thin folder in his hand. He had been promoted from the powertrain team only 6 months earlier. Trevor saw him before Lenora did, and intercepted him in the hall. "What is it?" "Mr. Cade, the voltage telemetry from the last cold weather run. There's an anomaly in the discharge curve under load. It's only on 3 units, but the pattern is." The young engineer trailed off. "I think we should brief the CEO before she takes the prototype out." Trevor took the folder from him gently, the way one takes a hot pan from a child. "How many units total in the prototype fleet?" 12. 3 out of 12, under cold load, brief, unexplained dip. "Within tolerance?" "Just inside, yes. But the shape of the curve, it looks like." "Daniel." Trevor's voice did not rise. "We are 3 weeks from the largest American auto IPO in 4 years. The CEO is driving the safest prototype this company has ever built. We do not flag intolerance data the week before launch. We confirm, and we close. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "I'll take it from here." Daniel looked at the folder, looked at Trevor, then turned and walked away. Trevor watched him go. He slid the folder into his briefcase, the way a man hides something he has decided how to face. By 11 the next morning, the press tour was rolling. 3 black SUVs and 1 camera crew van followed the white Aurora prototype north on Route 7. Lenora drove. A producer rode shotgun. A drone overhead caught the long ribbon of Vermont Road, unspooling between farmhouses. The footage was for a 60-second spot meant to air the night before the IPO. Outside a small gas station near the Bennington exit, the lead PR coordinator radioed forward. Front left tire was reading low. Probably nothing. Probably the cold morning. But the producer wanted a clip of the CEO problem-solving in the wild, so any nearby shop would do. A trooper waved them off the highway. The convoy rolled into a cracked asphalt lot across from a pump. Lenora stepped out. The cameras swung with her. The shop across the street looked like a postcard from another decade. The sign read Brandt and Son Auto in faded paint. One bay was open. A man in a flannel shirt was wiping his hands on a rag. Lenora looked around the lot, looked at the shop, and turned a quarter to her left so the boom mic could catch her clearly. "This," she said, "is what we keep talking about. This is the America we keep saying we're going to bring forward. Places like this still believe that experience replaces technology. They are wrong. The Aurora is the answer to this entire street." The producer's eyes lit up. One of the assistants giggled. Hollis walked across the lot with his rag still in his hand. He did not look at the cameras. He looked at the front left tire. "Morning," he said. "Slow leak, looks like. Probably a sidewall nick from gravel. I can plug it in 10 minutes if you want." Lenora barely glanced at him. She was watching the drone reposition for a wide shot. "Just put air in it," she said. "We have a schedule. It will go flat again before Burlington. Then we will change it before Burlington." Hollis nodded once, knelt by the tire, and went to work. Lenora pulled a folded $100 bill from her jacket pocket and held it out toward him without looking down. For the air, he did not take it. She placed it on the hood of the Aurora and walked back to the producer. "Did we get all of that?" she asked. "Every frame." "Good. Tighten it for the cold open. The whole sequence reads exactly how we want." She did not say thank you. She did not say goodbye. Within 7 minutes the convoy was rolling north again, the $100 bill still on the hood, fluttering once before sliding off into the dirt. Hollis picked it up. He stood for a long moment in the lot watching the white Aurora shrink down Route 7. The morning light caught the rear logo of the car, a small embossed shape he had not seen at that angle in almost 4 years. He recognized the curve of the housing. He recognized the bracket geometry. He had drawn part of that bracket himself in a CAD program in a building in New Jersey when he was 33 years old, and his wife was still alive. He folded the $100 bill twice, slid it into his shirt pocket, and walked back into the shop without a word. Inside, the chipped white mug was still half full. The press convoy reached Brattleboro by lunch and Burlington by dusk. Hollis worked through the rest of the day the way he always did. Oil change on a Subaru. Brake pad inspection on a minivan. A long conversation with a teenager about why her check engine light was not actually an emergency. Beck came home from school in the afternoon, did his homework on the workbench, and went to bed at 8:30 with a book about whales open across his chest. Hollis sat with him until his breathing slowed. Then he stood, turned off the lamp, and walked back out to the shop. He locked the front door. He pulled down the blinds on the office window. He went to the bottom drawer of his desk, moved the coffee tin of bolts, and took out the small locked case. The hard drive inside was 4 years old. He had not connected it in 11 months. He had promised himself he was done with it. He plugged it into his laptop anyway. The folder structure came up the way he remembered it. CAD files, test logs, voltage telemetry from the joint Apex drivetrain and Ashbridge Motors prototype program. The program that had produced the powertrain platform now sitting under the Aurora that had rolled past his shop that morning. He clicked through 3 nested folders and opened a file he had named himself, with his own engineering initials in the corner of every page. The report was 61 pages long. Title page in plain font, voltage anomaly, under cold load, Aurora powertrain platform, internal risk assessment. Author, H. Brandt. Date, November of the year his wife had died. He scrolled to page 44. The discharge curve was there, drawn cleanly. A small but consistent dip at the same point in the load cycle, whenever the battery dropped below a certain ambient temperature. He had flagged it then as a Class 2 risk. Recommendation: hold launch until root cause was isolated. He scrolled to the signature page. 2 signatures, his own, and 1 approval line marked rejected for release. Reviewed by T. Cade. Hollis sat for a long time without moving. He remembered the night his wife had called him from the side of the road outside Princeton. She had been driving the early test mule, the one the company had let senior engineers use on personal time during quiet weekends. Cold night, wet road. She had said the brakes felt strange. Then the call had dropped. 40 minutes later, a state trooper had stood on his front porch in the rain. The crash report had said driver error. The car had been totaled, the data module recovered but inconclusive, the official cause closed within 90 days. He had not been allowed to see the raw telemetry. He had asked twice. Then he had stopped asking. Then he had quit, taken Beck, taken what little they had, and driven north, until the road ended at a shop his father had once owned outside Bennington. He had told himself he was done. He closed the laptop. He sat with his hand flat on it for a long minute. Then he reopened it, copied the relevant folders to a small encrypted thumb drive, and slipped the thumb drive into his shirt pocket beside the folded $100 bill. At the same hour, 52 miles north, the dashboard of a white Aurora flickered once on a dark county road. The driver, alone in the car, frowned, tapped the screen, and watched the warning blink away. She told herself it was nothing. The system had reset. The car was fine. She kept driving. By 10:30 that night, Lenora Ashbridge was alone on a stretch of road she had not planned to be on. The producer had wanted a final solo shot for the campaign. CEO under moonlight, lonely highway, the future on 4 wheels. The crew had set up 2 miles ahead at a scenic pullout to film the car coming around the bend. Lenora had peeled off from the convoy in Manchester, taken the back route through the hills, and was now climbing alone on a stretch of state road, where the cell coverage thinned and the shoulders narrowed. The rain had started 40 minutes earlier. It was the kind of cold, late summer rain that turned to mist on the windshield faster than the wipers could clear it. The first warning came at 10:33. A small amber icon in the corner of the dashboard. Battery management notice. She tapped the screen with her thumb. It cleared. The second came at 10:35. Powertrain fault. Please pull over. She frowned, slowed to 40, and kept driving. The crew was less than 3 miles ahead. She would explain it as a software hiccup. The Aurora's onboard self-diagnostic was famously aggressive in cold weather. Trevor had warned her. The third came at 10:37 and did not clear. Critical powertrain fault. Unknown origin. Steering assist offline. Regenerative braking disabled. The wheel went heavy in her hands. The accelerator stopped responding. The car coasted, slowed, drifted toward the shoulder of its own quiet weight. She fought the wheel onto the gravel and stopped half on, half off the road, headlights flickering once and dying entirely. The cabin went dark. The screen went black. For a long moment, the only sound was rain on the roof. She reached for her phone. No bars. She held it up to the windshield, moved it side to side, watched the signal indicator stay empty. The emergency call function on the car was tied to the cellular module that had just died with everything else. She tried the door. It opened, which surprised her, and she stepped out into the rain in low heels and a thin wool coat that was not built for what was happening. Cold cut through her in under a minute. The Aurora sat behind her like an oversized white animal that had gone to sleep on the wrong patch of ground. She walked to the edge of the road and looked in both directions. Nothing south, nothing north. The producer's pullout was 3 miles past a bend she could no longer see. Then she turned around. A single yellow light glowed about a quarter-mile back, the way she had come. She had passed it without registering it. Now it was the only light in any direction. She squinted through the rain. A faded sign was just visible above it. Brandt and Son Auto. The recognition hit her in stages. First, the shape, then the lettering, then the memory of her own voice that morning. Places like this still believe that experience replaces technology. They are wrong. She stood in the rain for a long moment. She thought about waiting in the car. She thought about waiting for the producer to realize she had missed her mark and come looking. She thought about what it would feel like to walk a quarter-mile through this rain and knock on that door. She started walking. The gravel cut into the thin soles of her shoes within 100 yards. Her hair flattened against her neck. By the time she reached the lot, the cold had moved into her hands, and she had stopped being aware of her makeup or her brand or any of the things she had spent the day curating. She stood under the small overhang above the side door of Brandt and Son Auto, raised her fist, and knocked twice. A light came on inside. The door opened. Hollis Brandt stood there in the same flannel he had worn that morning, looking at her without surprise. "Your car," he said. She nodded. Hollis pulled on a canvas work jacket, took a hard plastic case from the shelf above the door, and stepped out into the rain. He did not say anything else. He did not ask her in. He walked past her, across the gravel lot, and started up the road toward where she had pointed. Lenora hesitated for half a second, then followed. They walked the quarter-mile in silence. The rain had eased to a steady, soaking drizzle. He had a small flashlight in his free hand, and he kept the beam low on the gravel. She had to half-jog to keep up with his stride. At the car, he set the case down, popped the hood with 2 clicks on the latch she had not been able to find herself, and pulled out a laptop and a cable she did not recognize. The cable ended in a connector that looked like the OBD port her engineers used. He plugged it in. The laptop screen lit up green. She stepped closer despite herself. "What software is that?" He did not answer. His fingers moved across the keyboard. "I'm serious. No third-party tool reads our protocol. We deliberately locked the diagnostic stack so independent shops could not reverse engineer it." He kept typing. "It's a proprietary handshake," she said. "I signed off on that architecture personally." "I know," he said. She went quiet. For nearly 3 minutes he read. Lines of code, voltage logs, fault traces scrolled past faster than she could parse them. She watched his face. She had spent her career in rooms full of men who pretended to read fast. This one was actually reading. He stopped at a particular block of text. He looked at it for a long time, his jaw tightened by a fraction. "You're lucky you're still standing," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" "It means the fault that just hit your car was not software. It means the fault that just hit your car is what happens when a battery management unit asks for current that the bus cannot deliver under cold load, and the controller resolves the conflict by cutting steering assist and braking regen rather than throwing a graceful error, which is a design choice somebody made on a whiteboard 4 years ago and signed off on." Lenora felt the cold reach a deeper layer of her. "Who are you?" He closed the laptop, unplugged the cable, and began to coil it. "I can get this car back to the shop. I cannot fix it tonight. The platform fault is not a fix. It's a recall. If you want, I'll tow it. If you want, I'll call your people for you. I have a landline." "Who are you?" she said again. He looked at her then, for the first time directly. His eyes were a calm gray in the wet dark. Someone who told them this would happen. He hooked a tow strap to the front of the Aurora and walked back to the shop to bring out his old tow truck. She stood next to her dead $200,000 prototype on the side of a Vermont road in the rain and tried, and failed, to make sense of what he had just said. He came back 10 minutes later in a rust-streaked Chevy that was older than she was. He hauled the Aurora the quarter-mile back to the shop with the practiced calm of a man who had done it 1,000 times. He guided her into the office while he unhitched the car. The office smelled of coffee and rubber. There was a small electric heater on the floor that was already running. A boy was standing in the doorway from the back of the shop. He was small for 7, in a flannel shirt that almost matched his father's. He held a folded blue towel in both hands. He looked at the wet woman standing in his father's office, and he did not seem afraid. He stepped forward and held the towel up to her without a word. Lenora looked at it for a long second. She took it. "Thank you," she said softly. The boy nodded once and went back to the workbench where his sketch pad was open. Hollis came in a few minutes later. He shook the rain off his jacket at the threshold so it did not come in on the floor, hung the jacket on a hook, and crossed to the small kitchen counter to put the kettle on. Lenora watched him move. Everything he did was small and economical. He had the body language of a man who had spent most of his adult life around heavy machinery and had taught himself never to waste emotion. "Black or with milk," he said. "Black is fine." He handed her a cup in a chipped white mug. The handle was warm. She wrapped both hands around it and felt the cold start to leave her fingertips. She looked around the office. The walls had calendars 2 years out of date. A photograph in a wooden frame on the desk showed a younger Hollis in a clean white shirt, a young woman with bright hair leaning into his shoulder, both of them laughing at something off camera. Lenora's eyes moved past it quickly. The woman in the photograph was the kind of person you only had to see once to understand, had been at the center of someone's life. The boy was back at the workbench, drawing. Lenora drifted toward him without meaning to. She told herself she was just being polite. She was actually looking for an angle. Something about this whole shop did not fit, and a child's drawings were a place adults forgot to hide things. He was working on a new page, a red Mustang again, a woman in the driver's seat with long hair. Behind that page, the corner of another drawing showed. She glanced toward Hollis. He was at the sink, his back to her. She lifted the corner of the page. The drawing underneath was older, the paper softer at the edges. It showed a car flipped on its side. Small orange flames sketched along the underside. The drawing had been done in the unflinching, undecorated way that only very young children draw things they have actually thought about. Above the wrecked car, the boy had written one line in pencil. "I hate this logo." Below the line was a logo, a pentagon-shaped badge, Apex Drivetrain. Lenora let the page fall back. She stood there with the warm mug in her hands and felt the floor of her career shift by a quarter-inch under her feet. Apex Drivetrain, acquired by Ashbridge Motors in the spring 2 years ago, folded into the powertrain division, the source of the platform under every Aurora that would roll off the line for the next 10 years. She turned, slowly. Hollis was at the sink, washing his hands. "Your wife," she said. Her voice was careful. What was she driving? He did not turn around. He shut off the water. He dried his hands on a clean towel. "A prototype," he said, "from a program I helped design." The office was very quiet. The boy had gone back to his red Mustang. He was drawing 2 stars above it. He did not look up. Hollis turned and leaned against the counter, his arms loose at his sides. He did not look angry. He looked like a man who had been carrying something for a very long time and had just decided, in a single small motion, to set part of it down. "My name is Hollis Brandt," he said. "I was the lead powertrain engineer at Apex Drivetrain. I wrote the original cold load risk assessment on the platform that's now in your Aurora. I flagged it as Class 2. I recommended you hold the launch." The report was signed off and then sealed by a man named Trevor Cade. "My wife died testing an earlier version of the same platform 6 weeks later." He picked up his own mug. "You can decide what you want to do with that information." Lenora did not speak for a long time. She looked down at the chipped white mug in her hands. She looked back up at the man across the small office from her. She looked at the boy at the workbench with his sketch pad and his 2 pencils. "I want to see the report," she said. The emergency board meeting was called for 9 the next morning, at the Manhattan headquarters of Ashbridge Motors. Lenora flew back at dawn in a chartered turboprop out of a small airfield outside Bennington. Hollis sat in the seat across from her in the same flannel shirt, with the thumb drive in his shirt pocket and the original 61-page report under his arm. He had left Beck with Earl Hadley, who had 3 grown daughters and had, on more than one quiet Saturday over the last 4 years, treated Hollis like a son he had never had. At 9 sharp, 12 directors filed into the brushed concrete boardroom. Lenora was already at the head of the table. Trevor Cade was at her right hand. He had been told only that there had been an incident with the prototype, that no one was hurt, and that the press would be managed. When Hollis walked in, Trevor's expression changed by 1 degree. Then it changed back. Lenora did not sit. She gestured to Hollis to take the seat at the foot of the table opposite her. He sat. He set the report and the thumb drive on the wood in front of him and folded his hands. "This," Lenora said, "is Hollis Brandt. Last night my Aurora prototype suffered a complete powertrain failure on a state road in Vermont. Mr. Brandt was the first person on scene. He diagnosed the fault in under 3 minutes using software our team has not seen before. Before any of you ask, he is not a competitor. He is the former lead powertrain engineer at Apex Drivetrain." A small ripple moved through the room. Trevor leaned forward, the smile already prepared. "Lenora, with respect, this man is a small-town mechanic who happens to have an old badge. We are 19 days from the biggest American auto IPO in 4 years. We do not pull a launch based on a roadside conversation." "He did not have a conversation," Lenora said. "He read our protocol. Anybody can claim to read a protocol." Hollis did not raise his voice. He did not raise his eyes. He reached into his shirt pocket, took out the thumb drive, slid it across the table to the IT director sitting halfway down. Then he opened the 61-page report and laid it flat in front of him, so the title page was facing up the length of the table. "This report was filed in November, 4 years ago," Hollis said. "Joint program between Apex Drivetrain and Ashbridge Motors. Subject: cold load voltage anomaly in the powertrain platform now under the Aurora. Recommendation: hold launch until root cause was isolated. 2 signatures, mine as author, and 1 rejection for release signed by Mr. Cade." He pushed the report a 1/4 inch toward the center of the table. "I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to read what one of you already buried." Nobody moved. The IT director plugged the thumb drive into the conference port. The screen at the far end of the room came alive with the same folder structure Lenora had seen the night before. The voltage curves, the rejection page, the signatures. Trevor's smile did not move. The rest of his face did. "This is fabricated," he said. "It's trivial to fake a signature page. Then pull the original from your own server," Lenora said. Her voice was level. "The report exists. Daniel Petrov brought you a follow-on memo 2 days ago that I never saw. Pull that too." Trevor's mouth opened, then closed. The room had gone very still. Hollis looked at Trevor for the first time. He looked at him the way a man looks at someone he has had 4 years to think about, and has decided, sometime in the last 12 hours, no longer to hate. "Every Aurora you are about to ship carries the same fault that killed my wife," he said. "This time it will kill your customers." Nobody spoke. A director near the middle of the table set down her pen with a small click that sounded enormous. Trevor stood up. He said very calmly that he needed to step out to call his attorney. He turned toward the door. Lenora lifted 1 finger. 2 security officers in the hallway closed the door from the outside. The next 90 minutes were the longest of Trevor Cade's career. Lenora ordered the IT director to pull every internal log that touched the original Apex Drivetrain risk report from 4 years ago. Forensic, no edits, no redactions on screen now. The director hesitated for 1 second, then started typing. While the logs came up, Lenora opened a secure video bridge to a woman in Charleston, South Carolina. Margot Steen, 62, former head of quality assurance at Apex Drivetrain, retired 2 years after the company was absorbed into Ashbridge. Margot's face filled the screen on the boardroom wall. She had iron gray hair pulled back, half-moon glasses, and the look of a woman who had been waiting for a phone call for 4 years. "Miss Steen," Lenora said, "do you recognize the document on screen behind me?" Margot leaned forward. She read the title page. She read the signature page. She nodded once. That's Hollis Brandt's report. I signed off on the QA side. I sent it up the chain. It came back rejected for release the same week. Do you know who rejected it? Trevor Cade. He was the only person with that signing authority on the joint program at that time. Can you confirm that under oath? Yes. The logs were on the screen now. Server access timestamps. A clean trail. The report had been pulled from the active engineering archive on a Tuesday afternoon 4 years ago. It had been moved to a sealed compliance folder 23 minutes later. The user account that had performed both actions was a single one. Cade, T Chief Operating Officer. Lenora turned to the Chief Financial Officer, who had not spoken since the meeting began. Pull Mr. Cade's personal trading records for the same week. Trevor's voice came from where he was standing, halfway between his chair and the door. Lenora, you do not have the authority to ask the CFO to pull a sitting officer's personal trades in a board meeting. I have the authority granted to me under Section 4 of our governance bylaws when there is credible evidence of executive misconduct that materially endangers shareholders. We have a wrecked prototype on a flatbed in a parking lot in Vermont. I have authority. The CFO already had the records open. He turned the screen. The same week the report had been sealed, Trevor Cade had sold 318,000 shares of his personal Ashbridge, holding at a price that, after the eventual launch, would have lost him roughly $9 million if he had held them. He had moved the proceeds into a private venture fund. The room understood it in the order of one heartbeat. He had not buried the report to save the launch. He had buried the report so that he could sell at a peak the launch made possible, before any recall could undo it. Trevor's face had gone the color of old paper. You are going to believe a mechanic and a retired secretary over the man who built this company with you, he said. There was something splintered under the calm now. Lenora walked the length of the table. She stopped a foot away from him. She did not raise her voice. I believe data, she said. You taught me that. It turns out you never believed it yourself. She turned back to the board. Effective this moment. I am moving for the immediate suspension of Trevor Cade pending federal investigation. I am moving for the immediate halt of all Aurora customer deliveries scheduled for the next 90 days. I am moving for a full voluntary disclosure to the Securities and Exchange Commission and to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. I am moving for an independent engineering audit of the entire powertrain platform, led by an outside firm of the board's choosing. I am asking for a vote now. The vote took 4 minutes. It was 11-0, with Trevor's chair abstaining because he no longer had standing in the room. Security escorted him out at 10:20 in the morning. By noon, the IPO had been formally postponed. By 2, the stock of Ashbridge Motors, which had been trading on the gray market in anticipation of the launch, had dropped 19%. By 4, the chairwoman of the board had called Lenora into a side office, closed the door, and asked her one question. Are you sure? Lenora thought about a man in a flannel shirt standing in the rain on a Vermont road, refusing to take a $100 bill. I'm sure. 6 weeks passed, the Vermont leaves turned. The mountain ridges around Bennington went gold, then rust, then bare. The federal investigation was opened, then sealed pending grand jury. Trevor Cade was indicted on 3 counts. The Aurora was redesigned at the powertrain level under an outside engineering firm. The IPO was rescheduled for the spring. The stock recovered most of what it had lost, then more. Industry analysts began to use a phrase about Lenora Ashbridge they had not used before. They called her honest. In Bennington, on a Saturday afternoon in early October, a small white sign went up on the side wall of Brandt and Son Auto. It read, in plain black letters, the Hannah Brandt Center for Independent Electric Vehicle Safety Diagnostics. Underneath, in smaller type, in partnership with Ashbridge Motors. There was a ribbon. There were no cameras. Hollis had asked specifically for no cameras. Inside the shop, a new diagnostic bench had been installed at the back. Modern screens, a clean workstation, 3 young engineers, all hired locally, all trained in the protocol Hollis had helped draft for the program. He had refused the offer to become Chief Technology Officer at Ashbridge. He had said, in the kind of voice that left no room to argue, that he had already chosen his life. Lenora had not pushed. She had understood. She drove up that Saturday in a borrowed pickup truck. No assistant, no press, no fitted black coat. Jeans, a flannel, a knit hat against the cold. She parked on the gravel and walked across the lot the way anybody would have. Beck saw her first. He was sitting on the same oil drum, drawing. He slid down, walked over without saying anything, and held a folded piece of paper out to her with both hands. She took it. She opened it. A white Aurora, parked in front of the shop. No flames underneath. No flipped frame. Just the car and the shop, and a small sun in the corner of the page. She crouched down to be at his height. "This is beautiful," she said. Her voice was not steady. Beck looked at her seriously. "It's for you," he said. "I drew the sun on purpose." "I see that." He nodded once and went back to the workbench. She straightened. Her eyes were red. She did not try to hide it. Hollis was already walking out of the bay with a chipped white mug in his hand. He held it out to her without a word. She took it. The coffee was hot and very strong, and tasted like the inside of a place that had stopped pretending to be anything other than what it was. They stood together on the gravel for a while. The wind moved through the maples on the ridge above the shop. A pickup went by on Route 7, and the driver lifted 2 fingers off the wheel in greeting. Hollis returned the gesture without thinking. Lenora looked at the new sign on the side wall. She looked at the boy through the open bay door. She looked at the man beside her. "I almost drove past this place," she said. "I know. Why did you come out that night?" He thought about it. "Because you knocked," he said. She laughed, very quietly. For the first time in a long time, neither of them had been looking for any of this. Neither of them had chosen any of it, but on a wet road in Vermont, 2 lives had turned back toward each other, and this time, neither of them was in a hurry to walk away.